Welcome to the Smart Publishing Impact Series. I'm Renée Lautermilch, Chief Editor at Smart Publishing, and this is the podcast where we explore all things writing, publishing, and the impact of storytelling. In each episode, I'll share insights and strategies to help you navigate the book journey, whether you're writing, publishing, or already an author. Plus, you'll hear from inspiring authors who are using their book to change lives. And if you're passionate about storytelling and ready to make an impact, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. Now let's get started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Smart Publishing Impact Series. I'm Renée Lautermilch, your host and Chief Editor at Smart Publishing, and this is my first official episode of 2026. We did a couple replays of previous episodes towards the end of the year and the beginning of the year. Each year now, Jonathan and I, we just shut the office down for 3 weeks. It's a slow time of year anyways, and I'm a firm believer that you really need to take some time at the end of the year to just, rest up, relax, reflect, do all those things so that you can go into the new year rested, renewed, and not burnt out. So a lot has happened since the last episode that I recorded, and it wasn't even supposed to be the last episode of 2025. Our daughter actually got RSV, and it led to pneumonia, and she ended up in the hospital. And so that whole week was a wash. She was finally discharged at 4 o'clock the afternoon on Wednesday afternoon, which is the day when I usually record this. So I think we just did a replay for that week or something, or maybe we didn't do anything at all. And fortunately, she recuperated really, really well. The recuperation time for RSV pneumonia, when it's hospitalized, we were told is about 7 to 10 days. And she was better after about 3 days. She was like 100%. So can't keep that kid down. And then we had a much needed trip planned. It was actually Jonathan and my first vacation in 8 years. The last vacation we went on was to Galveston, Texas, which I don't even know if that qualifies as a vacation, because if you've ever been to Galveston, it's kind of yicky. And it was our very first vacation ever as a family. And one of the sets of Aria's grandparents got to join us for a few days. So it was amazing. It was much needed. We felt just reset, renewed in our spirits, and have come back energized, but also, with a realization that we can't let, you know, even a year go by without, another, scheduled and intentional time off where we're not just off of work, but we get out of the house, we go somewhere different. We're in different surroundings. So, we're going to be very intentional about the time that we take off so that we can be our full and complete selves, which means that we have more to offer our authors, and just more to give. And we're more inspired, we're more motivated, and everybody's just better that way. You become the worst of yourself when you allow yourself to get burnt out. So we're going to be continuing to invest in the renewal of our spirits by just taking time away. So today's episode is episode 44. And since it is 2026, I thought that I would talk about what you need to do if you want to get your book out this year. Obviously, there's a lot of people who are thinking about what they want to do differently this year than they did last year. There's a lot of commitments that people make, whether it's a New Year's resolution, which over 91% of those fail, by the way. So I'm not a believer in New Year's resolutions. The only thing that has ever stuck for me is what's called a one-word theme, where you just have this one word, whether it's balance or healthier or whatever it is, you just go by that word. And that's kind of a word that you check all your choices by throughout the year. I don't necessarily have one, this year, I think for us, it's pretty clear, and it's that it's our commitment to taking more intentional time to, rest and renew and to spend time with our, as a family. But you may be listening to this and think, well, I committed to get my book out this year, to write my book and get it out this year. So the first thing that I'd like to say is, even if you haven't started your book yet, oftentimes we hear from authors about how it took years to write their book. It does not need to take years to write your book. I have never, none of the books I've written have ever taken a year to write. They've taken months. The longest I took to write a book was my first book, and that was a little over 4 months. And this is why we have a methodology that is encapsulated in my book, The 1 Hour Author, that is designed to get people's books out. Because when you're working on a project that takes a long time, um, it becomes demoralizing. It not everybody, can keep coming back and coming back and coming back. And oftentimes when someone says that they've been working on something for years, it's because they walk away and they leave it for a while, then they come back and they, do a little bit of work, and then they get burnt out, and then they leave it for a while. And so oftentimes when I'm talking to authors who have taken years to write their book, that's why. It's not because the actual writing process itself took years. And oftentimes that's because there's not a set plan and schedule for writing the book. Um, so our process is typically a 6-month process. It's something that we lead all of our authors through, and that's what I'm going to share on this episode. Are what are the secrets to creating a plan to write your book and staying productive and following through on that plan without leaving and walking away for months at a time to have your book drag out to years. And honestly, most of those manuscripts, they just sit around and they never get finished. Even if they do get finished, they never get published. So we're talking about not just writing your book, but getting it out this year as well. The first thing that you need to do is you need to solidify your concept. You need to have a concept that you feel strongly about. And don't wait for like inspiration to strike, or don't wait for it to align with your passions. It just needs to make sense. The juice needs to be worth the squeeze. So you may have an idea that you'd be passionate about writing about, but it may not make sense from an ROI perspective to spend your time on that if it's not going to accomplish any of your goals. So the first thing I'd want you to do is consider, why are you writing the book? Is it to distinguish yourself within your industry? Is it to be a personal branding book? Is it to gain more clients? What is that reason for writing a book? What do you want that book to do for you? Get very, very clear about that. And then you can back in your concept to fit that goal. So, um, you know, my first book is a great example. It was a professional branding book, Leading Through Love, and that book branded me as a leader, and it distinguished me and a leader who is different for not leading in the normal way that so many leaders lead. And that book worked out really well for me. I wanted it to be a book that would help me drive my career forward, and it absolutely did. Um, Employers, if you are employed, look at you very different when you're a published author, and especially when you're a best-selling published author, and especially when you can send them that book that gives them a really good idea of what it's like to work with you, or gives them a really good idea of, wow, this person's a total expert in this area. So that's just an example. We have other authors who have written books that are direct lead generators. So for example, I think it's sitting on the shelf behind me. Money Muscle Mindset by Devin Gonzalez is a book that is all about um, creating and running a successful fitness studio. But the direct I would say call to action in that is that he is a franchisor. And so people can purchase into his franchise and get a model that is already baked, successful, and ready to go. So that is a direct lead generator for him. So think about what your goal is and then back your concept into that goal so that you are intentionally writing a book that is going to be time well spent. Okay. Now, once you're there, you don't have to come up with the title. We have a lot of authors who get caught up on what the title is going to be. You can just do a placeholder title. Oftentimes in the writing process, it'll just fall into place. You'll have a sentence or maybe even a chapter title, or something happens in that writing process where you're like, okay, boom, that's it. That's the name of the book. But you can wait all the way up until the very end of once you're done with your manuscript to title your book. So it's not something that you need to move forward. What you really need to move forward, though, is a chapter map, which is a very robust outline that supports your writing process. It goes through how you're going to structure your book, what each chapter is about, the content that is going to be in each chapter, organized down to if you're going to share 5 tips at the end of the chapter with each reader, the details of the story that you're going to tell, or the specific expertise and details of the information that you're going to share. That is writer's block prevention, because if you spend a good amount of time and effort on the chapter mapping process, then you have a North Star every single time you sit down to write, or you can record for transcription, that will point you in the direction and remind you of what you're supposed to write about or talk about. And then all you have to do is just get it on the page. That's it. So I actually have a free resource. If you'd like to download our chapter map, you can go to smartpublishingservices.com, go to the resources section, and there is an available Excel spreadsheet template that you can download to use to create your chapter map. After you have your chapter map, you need to determine how you're going to write. Are you going to actually write, or are you going to record? Because a lot of people don't realize that even a lot of these best-selling New York Times books, like David Goggins' book or whatever that you see out there, also most likely Extreme Ownership, books like that, they actually, like, the authors didn't sit down and type the books. They didn't type it. They just talked into an audio recording, which was then transcribed and given to an editor. And then the editor shaped and edited it into a readable book chapter. So you don't have to put all the pressure on yourself if you're not a writer. Just pull up Zoom, pull up voice memo, pull up Otter AI, pull up anything that allows you to record yourself talking and export an audio file that can then be used in a place like Descript or Rev.com to create a transcription. And oftentimes things like Otter AI and even Zoom will create the transcription for you. Um, then I would say, the biggest thing from there is just get it on the page. Get it on the page. Do not self edit. I understand if you want to go back and add something that you forgot, or you want to go back and just, make sure that everything you wanted to express is there. But do not self edit. That is where so many people get caught up. And I will tell you, self editing comes from imposter syndrome. It comes from when you're actually really afraid to get your book out there. And so it becomes a method of procrastination and an excuse for why your book isn't out there, because you're afraid either nobody's going to care or nobody's going to like it. So you got to just get past that. And you have to stay mission focused. Instead of what are you trying to do for yourself, who are you trying to help with this book? If you can stay focused on who you're trying to help and the mission of how much it's going to help people to get your book out there, then you'll spend a lot less time inside your own mind critiquing yourself, which you will always be your worst critic. Um, then, of course, find a good editor. Nobody edits their own book. Do not let ChatGPT edit your book. ChatGPT has extreme limitations when it comes to editing books, both in the amount of length that it's able to handle, where it will start overly editing things, but also in context, perspective, understanding. It's not a human at the end of the day. It might be a good spell checker. It might be able to structure things okay. But I know when I get something from ChatGPT, because it's usually massively truncated, a lot of the detail is missing, some of the context is missing. It puts it in that stupid line by line formatting, and it throws M dashes and like almost every other sentence, and it might be okay for long form social media posts, but don't use it for your book. You can use it as a thought partner. You can use it to lightly edit things, but you should have an actual editor, a professional editor who knows how to edit for book publishing, and specifically for your audience, because they're going to bring things to the table that ChatGPT as a robot never can. They're going to take a lot of the heavy lifting off of you as well. You want to look for someone who not just does line editing, which is where you're sort of going through line by line, you're maximizing flow, grammar, but also developmental editing as well. Because if you're doing audio for transcription, you're going to get this big chunk of text. And you also need someone who's not just going to edit that big chunk of text and then it's an edited big chunk of text. They're also going to start to work in interactive elements, like maybe a QR code would be great at the end of each chapter to send them to a resource on your website as a way to gather lead data. They're going to break it up into sections to make it digestible for the reader, add things like call out boxes, pull quotes, to make it a really good professionally polished book that is as digestible and entertaining for the reader as possible. Because at the end of the day, I don't care how educational something is, if it's not entertaining the reader in some respect, the reader is not going to read entirely all the way through it. And it's never going to accomplish what you set out to accomplish with why you want people to read that book. So a really good editor is really important. And, make sure that you have, I should have put this a little ways back, but make sure that you have a weekly writing schedule. You are putting time on your calendar to write or record every week. You're blocking off 1 hour, at least 1 hour, okay? And if you're audio recording, you can totally get a chapter in 1 hour. In fact, 20 minutes of recorded time will translate in about 6 to 8 unedited pages. 40 minutes will translate into about 12 to 13 unedited pages, which, if you're looking in a Word document or a Google document, that's actually, that range is a really good and healthy range for a full length book. So you really don't need that much time. It's all about planning and then making and protecting the time. And then stick to it. Don't cancel it. One of the things that I always see is that when writers stick to a weekly writing schedule, they plow through and they get through their book. And especially when they also let their editor do the editor's job. The people who get stuck are the people who do not stick to a weekly schedule. If you're thinking, oh, I'll do it every 2 weeks, it's not frequent enough. It will not set in as a ritual habit that you do. You have to have it at least weekly. Weekly is the sweet spot. Trust me, I have worked with countless authors at this point in my career, and I see those who are successful and those who fall behind and become, inactive. Um, and, also the other side of that is that you're not self editing. You're handing it off to your editor and you're trusting your editor to do the job. Writing a book is a collaboration. Your editor is simply going to have, um, expertise in writing style guides, grammar, all those sorts of things that you don't have. And they're also going to have a perspective that you are too close to the trees to have as well. So they are going to be able to make your book shine not just for you. You're not writing your book for you. You're writing your book for the readers, okay? And that is always the perspective of your editor. Very, very important. Um, so lastly, I would say, once you have your manuscript created, you can do that again in just several months. Think, if you're writing a chapter a week and you have 12 chapters, that's 12 weeks. And then besides the introduction and conclusion and any kind of appendix material or whatever else you want to put in, epilogue, editors, author's note, whatever, your manuscript is pretty much done. And then it's time to send it off to an interior designer to make sure that it looks professional and that all the style standards are there, like justified. Um, Formatting and all the other things. Many people, when I show them their PDF manuscript, are like, "What? There's blank pages here." You have to have blank pages because remember, if people are turning pages, you can't have it front to back on every single side. Every chapter has to start on the right. Okay, chapters don't start on the left. So there are, very important things that hiring a professional formatter will pay off to. Same thing, professional cover designer, because paperback is going to have very specific sizing specifications to be accepted in platforms like Amazon KDP. So at that point, either go to our website smartpublishingservices.com and go under our education section. I have a course on KDP publishing. If you want to self-publish it, there's a full course that walks you through every nook and cranny, tiny detail of what you need to do after you have your finished manuscript to get your book published on Amazon KDP, which I always recommend because over 60% of books sold worldwide are sold off of Amazon. Okay. And just to give you a little bit more information, 84% of books are still purchased in a non digital format. That means hardcover or paperback. It's not hardback either, and it's not soft cover. Paperback, hardcover. Please, people come up with so many different names for these, and I'm like, wait a minute, what are we talking about? Hardback. My formatter still calls it hardback, hardcover. And it goes through all of those different things, but yeah, 84%. So you, at bare minimum, you want a Kindle version or a digital version and at least a paperback, if not a hardcover as well. Hardcover is not a huge, leap to make because your manuscript, your formatted manuscript, based on the trim size, you can use that same manuscript in your paperback and hardcover because it's the same paper trim, but you'll have to have two covers designed, a hardcover and a paperback cover, because hardcover extends a little bit beyond the page trim, and paperback is flush. The cover is flush with the which means it's the same trim as the interior trim. And if you want to do Ingram Spark or whatever, we get a lot of people who get caught up on Barnes and Noble. You could do expanded distribution in KDP so that it's available in Barnes and Noble as well, and all the different places that Ingram Spark would put it anyways. Barnes and Noble is responsible for 18% of books sold worldwide, and that includes both digitally and in stores. So do you want 60%? Or do you want 18%? Or do you want 60% technically plus 18% if you do expanded distribution? Now, if you do expanded distribution, you do give up about 20% of your royalties that way. So, just to know. Now, if you don't want to do all of this stuff on your own and you really, appreciate the guidance of somebody who knows all the moving pieces of not just the writing process, the publishing process, the editing process, the marketing process as well, every nook and cranny from start to finish of coming up with your book concept all the way to releasing it and continuing to use it as a tool in your business or your career, hit me up. You can find me on smartpublishingservices.com. You can also add me on Facebook. That's where I am mostly. You can search me, Renée Lautermilch, Lautermilch. I'm the only Renée Lautermilch in the world, so I'm the only one who will pull up. I get people who drop in my DMs all the time to ask questions, and I love to help folks out. So definitely connect with me there. But yeah, yeah, that is everything that you need to do if you want to get your book out this year. Uh, and I'll just summarize it by the most important things. Solidify your goal first, then align your concept with your goal. Um, Determine how you're going to write your book. Are you going to write or are you going to record? Recording is the quickest and the easiest way to do it, recording for transcription. Take the time to make a very detailed chapter map. That will be your North Star as you're writing. Make and protect weekly time to write or record, and have a really solid editor, and either self-educate, through our KDP publishing course, or hire a professional to help publish your book. And it's never too early to hire that professional, because oftentimes authors need a lot of help getting through the writing process. So you don't have to do the writing process on your own. You can have someone like myself who will coach you through it, and who will help to hold you accountable to that weekly time, and who will meet with you and connect with you when you feel stuck or when you get stuck, and help to give you that confidence that you need to get all the way through it. So thank you for tuning in. Happy New Year. 2026, it boggles my mind. It's making me feel so old. But this is going to be a great year. This is going to be the year that you get your book out. And like I always say at the end of every episode, rate and review. Take 60 seconds. I would appreciate it so much. Subscribe to this podcast if you haven't already, and keep writing your story, because the world needs your voice. Take care now.